It's always interesting to consider what life will be like in the future. Neuromancer by William Gibson is a sci-fi heist adventure that is set in a future where humans are surrounded by technology. This technological setting gives a peek to any curious mind of how a world with such advancements impacts a society and the people in general. The reader learns just how much technology changes the values and motivations of people. For example, a big theme in this novel is how most characters are driven by self-interest rather than to value human connection. In this presentation, I will be explaining how Neuromancer shows this disconnect with human connection, and why living in a technologically dominated universe fundamentally changes society to a point where it is arguable if humanity has been lost completely. Case and Molly are our protagonists of the story, so they give us the best idea of what global values and motivations the general populace in Neuromancer have. Molly is heavily driven by personal pride and money, so she is the best example of the self-interest aspect of people. She's essentially the default human depiction of people in this universe, just as a badass. Molly is also a good argument to use in the discussion of if humanity is completely lost here, because she is shown both expressing the ability to love, or at least care deeply, but her love comes with great hesitation because of how cyberpunk culture has corrupted her view of human connection, such that it is seen as a weakness or liability. Case, on the other hand, is more driven by his emotions than pride and money. As a little summary for Case, he is a heartbroken boy, and just broken in general with his injuries and then the poison sacs that Armitage puts in him. He refers to his body as a meat prison and has resentment for being alive. He is a drug addict because he loves not having to think, and this is why, when he is first able to jack into the Matrix and use technology such as SimStim, he prefers virtual life over reality. Yet, despite his depressing introduction, Case experiences character growth along with Molly to eventually show and prove the ability to prioritize human connection over self-interest. At one point, Case is given the dilemma to save Molly from being trapped in the Tesher Ashpool fortress. He can either risk his life to save someone he's found a genuine connection to, or he could leave having completed his mission and have the poison sacs finally removed. And guess what? He does ultimately save her. 1 point for humanity. The only reason he took the job in the first place was purely self-interest to repair his body. But in this instance, it shows how he is not driven solely by self-interest and that he can consider other interests equal to his own. Now, despite the character growth of Molly and Case's relationship, I believe that humanity is dead in Neuromancer. For one, Molly leaves Case after everything that they've been through. Molly and Case both have experience of being hurt before as a result of putting hope into a relationship. This especially can be seen by Case's broken heart from Linda Lee. Anyway, Molly recognizes that and doesn't want it to happen again. Her self-interest for money outweighs any connection they had. Case can be argued that he wanted to have that connection. The only motivation he had at the beginning was to repair his body, and other than that, he doesn't really have much else going for him. He does not have the pride Molly does, so it makes sense that he would desire to have Molly as almost like a will to live. In the end, when Molly leaves him, he goes back to his old ways and gets high and continues to kill himself, while Molly continues to be a badass. In addition to Molly leaving Case, there are many other examples of the lack of humanity in Neuromancer. A character that truly highlights non-human life and the disappearance of humanity is Armitage. Armitage, once Croto, a brave soldier severely injured by war, is now just a shell of a person. He had so many alterations and enhancements to his body that he is essentially an AI built by Wintermute, programmed with a purpose. Armitage is a great example of human versus non-human in the world of Neuromancer. He can easily convince both the reader and characters that he is human, but in all truth he has no motivations or desires. One can only think of the effect that would have on people being in a world surrounded by desireless androids. Having such a technologically rich universe means the loss and blurred lines between human and non-human. What makes a human is those desires and raw emotions that androids can only emulate. It's interesting as a reader navigating the story trying to understand the actions of characters knowing that most of them have no motivation similar to ours in present day. With so many emotionless entities, it makes sense that human connection becomes rare and seen as a weakness. In conclusion, Neuromancer is a bit of an insight or comment revolving around the ethics of AI in our present day. Despite it being written in the 80s, there are already many similarities that can be drawn between the world we live in and the universe Gibson has created. Technology is already seen influencing us to be disconnected from each other. Even more similarities are going to be drawn once there is a massive rise in human enhancements and increasingly more human like AI. The more and more emotionless entities that surround us, the more and more we will begin to copy them, such that the reader witnesses to the characters in Neuromancer. Humans are easily manipulated by the circumstances they are in. We are sheep whether we like it or not.